Welcome back, Buccaneers fans, to another episode of Here the Cannons, presented by BucsGameday.com, Sports Illustrated's one and only website strictly dedicated to your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. My name is Caleb Skinner, your host, as always, at CHSNoel on X. With me, as always, is our lead editor-in-chief, River Wells, at River H. Wells on X as well. We appreciate you guys for hopping in with us tonight. If you aren't already, head over to YouTube. Go ahead and click that subscribe button, turn those notifications on for us, and you'll be let known that we are live whenever we are live. We appreciate you guys tuning in. With that being said, River, let's go ahead and jump into this recap of the Saints game. I know that you and Logan were able to go over that a bit on Sunday in that instant reaction. A lot to like, not a lot not to like in this one as well. Specifically on the offensive side of the ball, a lot to like specifically on the defensive side of the ball. So let's go ahead and jump into it. 23-3 win for the Bucs in New Orleans. They're in Louisiana, man. Always a tough place to play. They're always going to play you hard in a division game. You come out with a victory without allowing a single offensive or defensive touchdowns. Really good look. But yeah, I think the offense overall needs to get things going. And then, we'll get into the officiating a bit later, which there are some concerns and questions about that as well. But go ahead and recap that for us a little bit, River. And what did you like? What did you not like?
I think you hit the nail on the head. Big W and the Big Easy. Defense looked fantastic, getting 4 turnovers against the New Orleans Saints. That's big to get those takeaways, and it's caused the Bucs to be the 4th best team by turnover differential in the NFL heading into Week 9. So that's pretty nice as well. Anthony Nelson killing it, secondary killing it. They're getting sacks, they're getting pressure. The Bucs offense not doing too hot, right? We saw one offensive touchdown, and it was a Sean Tucker run after 9 straight tries at the 1-yard line over 2 drives.
Brutal. Absolutely.
Tough there. Really tough to get things going for that offense. Baker Mayfield looking a little bit banged up. The offense missing Mike Evans, missing Chris Godwin, really missing Luke Gedeke on the right side of the line. That right side line has been exposed all year without him there, and it's only been getting worse over the past 2 weeks. So I think Josh Gazard has got to make sure that he can get creative, lacking this personnel, and it should get easier for him once that personnel comes back. But they got to go and evaluate kind of what's going wrong, why the run game's not picking up. Averaging only 3.8 yards per carry right now. It's almost last in the NFL. It's definitely bottom 5. And they got to figure out how to get that going and to make sure that the passing game can kind of jumpstart to where it was a few weeks ago when you had games against Seattle Seahawks and it was high flying, games against the Saints or sorry the 49ers, stuff like that. So we'll see how that goes, and hopefully they come out rejuvenated and with some good game plans, because man, those first 3 games after the bye, brutal.
Yeah, it's something, man. Not being able to punch the ball in from the 1-yard line over and over, I think 4 or 5 times in a row. It's concerning. The run game, as you mentioned, has been a problem. The past few weeks, we've seen it slow down ever since Bucky Irving went out.
Yeah.
I wrote about Bucky Irving over on BucsGameday.com about him being able to bounce back here in the second half and kind of really explode.
Yeah.
Get that running game to the next level, balance out that offense again with Baker Mayfield. Then maybe you see when you get Chris Godwin back, but without him or without those guys on the offensive line, a lot of that is really difficult. But Bucky Irving's a huge piece of how explosive and that offense can be there. So I think it'll definitely help. This bye week's going to be huge, getting healthy, getting that extra rest. I know Rashid was taking a beating left and right. So that'll buy time for him. Get guys like Chris back healthy as well. But the defense showed out, man. You can't ask for much more. Probably should have been more touchdowns on the board there on the defensive side of the ball. So let's go ahead and jump into that. And that's a big question mark around the NFL, not just in the Bucs Saints game, right? We did have that, what they call it, erroneous whistle.
An erroneous whistle. That's correct. That was the official terminology, according to the polls.
Erroneous whistle.
You got it. There you go.
What that means. So be it. But yeah, on that the fumble picked up, ran in for a touchdown return by AWJ. Apparently there was a whistle that came from the other side of the field, which is pretty brutal and honestly not really that side judge's job. And is my understanding of that. The play was on the complete opposite side of the field, so there's no reason for him to be blowing his whistle. Anyways, What are your thoughts on this, River? And do you think this needs to change going forward? Because there was also that play in the Giants and the Eagles game with the tush push, where Kayvon Thibodeau was able to strip, Jalen Hurts of the ball where it still looked like he was moving forward, but they blew a whistle and called, his forward momentum dead. So your thoughts on this? What's going on with the NFL officiating? Because this isn't the first time that it luckily hasn't come back to haunt the Bucs, but the Buccaneers have dealt with this, and it seems to be back-to-back weeks now.
This is a pretty broad question. I'm willing to answer it, but it's a broad question. The thing is, it kind of seems like, at least from the outside, like every 50-50 call has gone against Tampa Bay this year, which is tough luck. If you want my opinion on why officiating has gotten the way that it has, I think the rulebook's too complicated, man. I really do. I think there's subsections to every rule. I think having some rules that are up for interpretation is understandable.
Right.
Things like pass interference, things like what a catch is, but do we need to know what a football move is? We need to know when it hits the ground. What's the rule there? The Joe Vicious rule. How does your feet work in conjunction to when you bob it, right? Like there's multiple things that go along with every rule. That goes with motion, pre-snap motion, getting set, right? Going down, when are you touched, yada yada. It's just so much these referees have to take care of in the rule book. And honestly, I don't really blame them all that much. And I think officiating has gotten worse, but I think it's just because the rule books become so bloated in the NFL that these referees have to know so much, remember so many things over the course of a game. And I think if you want rules to be better and to be conjoined, I don't think they will do this because the NFL just makes so much money that there's no feasible reason why you would ever want to change anything. But if you did, making the rule book smaller and constricting it to include less rules for interpretation and less subsets to multiple different types of rules that involve motion, positioning, catches, when a runner is down and when they're not, when they start running. I mean, think about how many rules there are for moving a fumble inside 2 minutes and then outside 2 minutes. It's different. There's just so much to look forward to now, and I think that's one of the bigger problems. So I think it's part of the reason why refereeing has gotten so out of hand recently.
Yeah, we got some comments here. Thank you, Danette, for coming in here saying NFL is the new NBA. I think betting on sports should be completely banned. I bet the officiating might get better. Quite a take there. That's going back to the Donahue,
I don't know if I disagree, but
the Donahue gambling thing back in the day, in the early 2000s, and then now we're seeing what's going on in the NBA. I'm not sure about any refs being brought in on that yet, but maybe would have something to do with it. Not sure if anything like that. But Christopher's in here agreeing
that's
with you.
That's the big one.
Simplifying the rules, possibly dumbing it down. Some would say it could help situations such as this, because there is a lot of information flowing out all at once, and you got to keep that information flowing in your head while being able to maintain the game that is happening right in front of you. But at the same time, I don't think there's really much to call for when you're blowing a whistle from the side of the field that the play is not even happening on, unless the play makes its way over there. Like there's no reason for you to be doing that in that instance. Fortunately, it didn't hurt the Bucs. They'll move on from this. But Bowles has been pretty open about it. Some of the other coaches as well. I know Bruce Arians was on the Pat McAfee show, just absolutely
he is,
tearing them apart. I think J.J. Watt was on there as well, just saying how horrible job the officiating has been in the NFL as a whole here over the past couple of weeks. Right. So hopefully there's something in place right now that's going to change moving forward. We're midway point, so let's kind of examine what's going on. Hey, what changes need to be made? What changes do not? And maybe just reiterate, what rules we're looking at and which rules are most important, and just keeping the integrity of the game and the fundamentals of, your job as an officiate.
That's a lot of work. I think I'd rather just put an emphasis on taunting and call it a day, honestly. I think that's way easier. So let's just do that, and then we're fine.
Yeah, just flag every time. And then
that's all right. I think we're good.
Everything else is legal. With that being said, the Buccaneers are in a solid spot, 6-2, third overall in the NFC, first overall in the NFC South. So we've got no game this week, River. So we've got whatever in the world to talk about. So let's talk about the state of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and where they are at. here
That's
now.
pretty topical. I think we could do that. That's pretty
Yeah, I think that's
topical.
fine,
Yeah.
right? Like that's pretty fair. So looking at it, the Buccaneers, where they are positioned right now, they've got pretty high playoff chances to make the playoffs. I think we're at 92%.
Yeah,
You know,
that's the
one
should.
goes from there on and so forth. So down to 66 to move on to the next round, and probably about
Yeah.
30 something down to 6% to win the Super Bowl. So they're in a pretty good spot, sitting nicely. And a lot of the love and a lot of the lust is kind of falling off of Tampa Bay after their loss to Detroit, but still rolling high, looking good. No real problems there in the NFC South. Going to have good positioning, good seating, as long as they're able to finish up the season strong. What are your thoughts on their playoff chances, and do you think there's any sort of fashion or way that they aren't going to make the playoffs this year, and what is it going to take for them to do so?
Yeah, it would be really tough for them not to make the playoffs. I think they'd really have to try hard. Right now, they're 2 games up in the NFC South on the Panthers. They have a game in hand against the Atlanta Falcons as well. And if you look at the schedules, the Falcons are playing the Patriots, yeah, and then the Panthers are playing the Packers, and then not that this particularly matters whatsoever, but the Saints are playing the Rams. So those are 3 really tough matchups for the rest of the NFC South. There's a
Yeah.
feasible way that you come out of this week and the Bucs are 3 games up in the division. It would be shambolic, quite frankly, to blow that lead. Not to mention,
Shambolic.
really tough.
That's new. I got to add that.
Word of the day.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, with this remaining 3 game stretch here after the bye, right? Patriots, then Bills, then Rams. You want to win the Rams game. You don't have to win the other 2. But let's just even say that they lose all 3 of those, right? Then they're 6-5, but they've got the rest of the NFC South to play, who they're better than pretty definitively. Falcons in a skid. Panthers have not played a lot of good competition. The Saints are the New Orleans Saints. And then
Yeah,
you've got the
Tyler
Arizona.
Scott's back, baby. Tyler
Then
Scott.
you got the Arizona Cardinals and the Miami Dolphins are your remaining 2 games at that point. So I mean, not to count the chickens before they hatch. That's what I
Right.
told JC on his pod before this one. You want to still be diligent. You want to still play like you're fighting for that spot because that's how you maintain that killer instinct that Todd Bowles is looking for to keep winning football games. But this is going to be a hard division to lose. They're better than every other team in the NFC South, and they have a pretty soft schedule outside this brutal murderers row that they've got for the next 3 games. So yeah, I think the NFC South's probably going to go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They just got to prove that they can win big games in the playoffs. They've already lost to 2 high-seeded NFC teams, the Detroit Lions and the Philadelphia Eagles, and they're going to play another one in the Los Angeles Rams. Now, if the season ended today, that's who they would play at home, would be the Rams. So they got to prove that.
I'm sure every Buck fan is excited.
Oh yeah, but McVay's been a coach that Todd Bowles struggled against, and he got Shanahan this year. Can he get McVay this year? Proving that you can beat a team like that would go a long way into making Bucs fans and myself confident that when they do get to the playoffs, they can actually do some damage.
Yeah, it's like I forget where if we were talking on the show or not, River, or maybe just before the game, before the Detroit game. I just felt like I just had something bad. I just was like, there's just something wrong. Like something's off. Like you could just tell, like going into it, that it was not going to turn out the way that we had hoped. And maybe that just falls on what happens in those big games, right? So it's tough for the Buccaneers in those big matchups, and it's twice this year, and maybe they are able to buck this trend. You've got a young Patriots team, yeah, they are rolling right now.
And they've got the current, in my opinion, MVP favorite playing quarterback with Drake May, so that's going to be a big test.
Absolutely. Drake May is on fire. Stephon Diggs coming back to life after his injury and leaving Houston. And they just look good. Ramondre Stevenson. Defense is pretty solid. Mike Vrabel's doing a great job. Tough to play there. Then you got Buffalo Bills. They might not be as good as we thought they were at this point.
But they got Josh Allen.
They've still got Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Their run defense is not good at all. So hopefully you do have Bucky Irving back by this point. And you can be able to run him a lot, run Rashid a lot, run anybody a lot, because you're going to need to force it. Because that's what, even if they're stopping it early, you're going to need to force it against the Bills. They don't have much of a defense there. You're going to have to worry about that offense. But with the way your corners are playing, you're not really too scared of a Khalil Shakir or a Keon Coleman at this point in either of their careers. So I like them. more so in that matchup than potentially the Patriots one.
Yeah.
And then also the Rams, which is the big one because those other two teams are over there in the AFC. Always present a problem. You go back to even the Brady days and the walk-off, or not the walk-off, but the big Cooper Cup, down the seam, wide open down the middle.
You're going to give a lot of people PTSD in that chat. My goodness.
just a brutal, memory of Buccaneers fans as well. So it would be huge. That defense is no joke. On the back end there in LA, you can they're a little more susceptible, I would say. And their secondary.
It rarely matters when you've got Byron Young and Jared Verse up there up front. I mean, that's exactly what happened with the Lions. And the Lions proved that if this Bucs right side is still, not doing well by the time the Rams come, they have the formula. You play man coverage, you let Young and Jared feast, and then you win the football game. So they got to be careful. They got to make sure they're very creative in the ways that they're chipping their outside linebackers and how they're working the offense around these injuries.
Absolutely. Those first 3 games right off the bye, no joke. But I'd rather have them then than there at the end of the schedule. So that bodes well. 4 out of your last 5 games, obviously NFC South matchups. 1 against the Saints, 1 against the Falcons, and 2 against Carolina Panthers. Panthers kind of trending upward right now, looking okay. As you mentioned, the Saints not in a good spot. On track to be perhaps one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in the NFL once again after benching Spencer Rattler for Tyler Shock, and then who knows what is going on there in Atlanta.
Yeah.
You go out and beat a really, really good team one week, and then you go and drop the hammer, or the hammer gets dropped on you in another week. So you can't really figure them out either at this point. So with that being said, Bucs are in a great spot. They've got to finish strong, obviously. You don't want to put one foot in front of the other too soon.
Right.
And here is a moment for the Buccaneers to have a chance to, kind of put a stranglehold on things, if you will, there in the NFC South as we come down the stretch here before the end of the regular season. But we are approaching something else here, River.
Are we?
Can you guess what that is?
Can I get one guess?
Just one.
It's Halloween.
No, but it could be spooky, depending on which direction we want to go with this. So how this can go: should Buccaneers GM Jason Light explore a trade at the trade deadline? There's some guys out there.
Trade deadline.
He's been thrown around from the Jaguars. Trey Hendrickson is apparently possibly back on the market, not real sure. But there's other guys out there as well where the Buccaneers could look. Where are they going to look if they do look? And who are some of the possible candidates that could be looked at from them?
Yeah, I've talked a lot about this today.
We've got 1 week, River. We've got 1 week, so
we do. I think my 3 that I've named today are all Miami Dolphins. I'm talking outside and inside, 2 off-ball guys. I would say Jordan Brooks and Jalen Phillips is the edge rusher. I'm trying to think of the other inside linebacker because my brain's scrambled now.
Either Brooks is one. You got Judon's out.
Terrell Dodson. That's what I'm thinking of. Sorry, guys. It's been a day. Terrell Dodson and Jordan Brooks both play inside linebacker for the Dolphins, and they both have been pretty productive in run stopping because Miami likes to keep them pretty far up front. Jordan Brooks actually leads the NFL in tackles right now, which is very good. But the Bucs have a pretty big failure when it comes to covering the middle of the field with their linebackers. That's Servase Dennis and Levante David. Servase Dennis has been analytically one of the worst coverage players in the NFL, regardless of whether he's a linebacker or a corner. And Levante David has the football IQ to make plays, but he is still slow, quite frankly, because of his age, right? He's slowing down. Yeah. And that's something that he can do. That's just how, Mother Nature takes its course. And if you're a Super Bowl contender, and the Bucs think that they're a Super Bowl contender, like Jason Light thinks that they're a Super Bowl contender, I think the biggest gap that you have on your team is the middle linebacker position, those off-ball linebackers.
Absolutely.
And the inability to cover running backs who can pass catch. And you're going to run into those same guys again in the playoffs. You're going to run into Jahmyr Gibbs again. You're going to run into Christian McCaffrey. You're going to, and you're going to play Bijan Robinson one more time, right? So if you're serious about it, I think you at least call and you try and get one of those guys. And Todd Bowles spoke to us on Monday. He said you don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul, but you don't want to give up your future for it. But keep in mind, too, Lavonte David may well retire at the end of this year. In fact, I think it's a decent possibility that happens. And if Lavonte David retires, you could at least have another linebacker in one of those two that could play for you for a few more years. But it's also a long-term move as well as a short-term patch.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's the one move I would try and make. They didn't get a linebacker in free agency, and then they didn't draft a linebacker at all. They were
Well, they
content with
did
using
get
Dennis.
they did get a linebacker in free agency. He just never
Anthony
played.
Walker Jr., right, and then they cut him, and then he didn't come back. So they really didn't make a big starting adjustment, essentially. And now they have this problem, and it's the biggest problem in their defense, and I think it's got to be addressed. It's got to be addressed. So that would be my big one. And then Jalen Phillips, briefly mentioned him, outside linebacker for the Dolphins. Hurt, but 27 pressures in the year per PFF could be a nice replacement if Haason Reddick's out for a long period of time. That would be another potential option.
Yeah, and I wrote a piece similar to this for trade options there on BucsGameday.com, so you guys head over there and check it out. A couple of those guys that you mentioned were on there. A couple guys that you did not mention were on there. They could, with the Reddick situation, with us not knowing, quite how severe that ankle is, along with any bruises and bumps that he has outside of that. You could look at an outside edge rusher because you don't really want to rely on a guy like Chris Braswell. But obviously, they're content with having Anthony Nelson back there after a coming out party against the Saints, albeit it is the Saints. So take that for what it is.
Right.
So we'll continue to, probably evaluate that and see how things go. I don't expect them to make a move for an edge rusher per se, more so along the same lines that you're thinking, River, inside linebacker coverage guy. Allow, Voss to be kind of that run stopping guy,
Right.
do what he needs to do, fill gaps, blitz when he can as well, because that just gives Todd another blitzer at his disposal instead of having to have him try and cover back to the backfield every single down. So yeah, I think that's a good spot to go. I think wide receiver you could look at as well, whether that's a guy like a Jerry Jeudy there in Cleveland or
Right.
DeAndre Hopkins. I know a veteran older guy, or Rashid Shaheed even there in New Orleans.
I don't know about that one.
I
don't
mean,
know. Especially Jason Light clowning on Cameron Jordan on Twitter and then asking if Rashid Shaheed's available would be pretty funny. But I don't know if that's gonna happen.
I highly doubt something like that will happen with that. But what I'm looking at here for these guys is somebody who can kind of get that long ball that you get with Mike Evans, right? So not necessarily a guy who can go up and high point a ball or anything like that, but guys who could be able to stretch the field for you a little bit. Yeah, Emeka could do that, and we saw flashes of that early. But I think Emeka's kind of more one of those guys that you kind of want to be relied upon to do those middle of the route, find those open areas in the zone type player right now in this offense, rather than a guy who you want to stretch the field in that sort of fashion. Which brings up another point. Are you worried? Could you see them going after a wide receiver? Not another point, I guess, but because you're asking a lot of some of these guys to step up. You're asking a lot of a rookie in Tez Johnson. Sterling Shepard is, where Sterling Shepard is at in his career. You're not really going to get much more out of him than what you already have. And then maybe the possibility of Godwin coming back when, we don't know. Possibility of Jalen McMillan coming back when, I don't know. So with those two guys not coming back, you already know you're down Mike. You're looking really thin in that wide receiver room right there, unless they know something that we do not at this point, to where they're not going to freak out. I don't see why they wouldn't at least take a gander at it.
Yeah, I don't know, especially if you got Chris Godwin coming back after the bye. That's two people like Emeka Egbuka and I don't know about that one. Emeka Egbuka and Chris Godwin both are kind of space finders on offense, right? They can kind of find those gaps in the defense and exploit them. And Emeka's been so good at that. And Chris Godwin, when he's playing to Chris Godwin levels of play, is also very good at that. So it's another veteran that comes back. You know, Sterling Shepard, who I thought's been a pretty good possession receiver so far for the Bucs, and Emeka, who just came to the team and just became the team's best wide receiver, as rookies do, I guess. So if Mike Evans back towards the end of the year as well with that collarbone injury, hopefully it heals the right way. I am not sure that would be a trade that they would go after, but I think linebacker is more pressing. That's where I would go, and we'll see what happens. Also, Richard, I wanted to bring up another one here. You said, what about Burns and the MI Giants? Brian Burns currently co-leads the NFL in sacks, so that would be a tough ask. I think he's got 10 sacks in the year, just like Myles Garrett. Asking price probably be a little bit higher.
Yeah, if anything, you're going to get Kayvon Thibodeau out of those guys. Obviously, you're not going
Which
to
I
move
think
off.
they've mentioned Thibodeau's off the table,
Yeah.
right?
And they're obviously not going to come off of their rookie Abdul Carter at this point. So, unfortunately, you can't go get a Giants outside linebacker here this time around to make another run at a Super Bowl. Unfortunately. But to say the Buccaneers and Jason Light decide, hey, we're going to go ahead and make some calls, see if we can make a trade. If they do make a trade, or if they don't trade for somebody else, who on this Buccaneers roster could you see being a part of a package if the Buccaneers do, or even if they don't, and they just acquire picks by dispersing of them because they no longer need them and would value, that asset of a pick later?
Tough, tough. It would have to be a player pretty far in the depth chart. I saw Benjamin Solak at ESPN, who does great work. He proposed a trade for Jordan Brooks, and he mentioned Christian Isian as a player that would be lifted off. That's like that type of player it would have to be. And even so, Todd Bowles really likes what Christian Isian can do as a backup. He can play safety, he can play nickel. He's pretty versatile, and there's already been so many injuries on this team that do you want to be trading like any depth you have at any level,
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's tough to think about. I don't know. It would have to be someone pretty far down the depth chart like that. Running back, they like all three, so that's not really viable there. Receiver, they got guys like Ryan Miller, but they still use him in the blocking game, so it gets tough. It gets tough. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree to that.
Yeah, with Danette, Bowles will never let go of Izzy. We got to remember that too. That even before the season started, I think what was it, Todd Bowles, who said, yeah,
He was the first person to
has
make the
anybody made
roster
the
in
team
camp.
yet? Yeah, Christian Izzy has.
Yeah, the first person to say that he definitively made a team was Christian Isian. So clearly they like a lot what he can do. So it's tough when you look at these depth pieces because they're just so hurt right now. They need all those guys, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly, and that's the point. You might as well hang in with what you got right now, and whatever you get back from injury, you just be thankful for it, and you run out the season as best you can, and go from there. I mean, it's the NFL; things are going to happen. It's an up and down league. It's a roller coaster, left and right, whatever you want to call it. Let's keep it moving here, River, to our last topic of the night. Injury updates. I know we don't have a game this week. We didn't have anything serious come out of the Saints game, if I'm remembering correctly. So there are some things to talk about. It looks like Luke Gadecki is nearing a return. Seeing him without a brace on, potentially no scooter, walking around barefoot outside of the stadium or around the stadium, I guess there at Caesar's Dome, or the Superdome. Excuse me. At
you
the
good?
Super.
Yeah.
Caesar's next door, in case you guys are wondering. Yeah, I just totally told on myself there. But yeah, I mean, it looks like he's going to be back. Still not sure on what Todd Bowles said about Haason Reddick. Wasn't able to pick up on that at all. So if you want to give us some updates on some of these guys, River, if you've heard anything on Jalen, Chris, Bucky, the list goes on and
on. Luke Gedeke, we still aren't sure on. It seems like it's a state secret, whatever's going on with him. It's a foot injury. We thought maybe he'd be back by Detroit. He's not. Hasn't been activated off IR yet. So we'll see what happens there. I think that's probably the most crucial guy the Bucs want to get back. So we'll be looking at that. We do have some updates on some of the others, though. Chris Godwin and Bucky Irving, according to Todd Bowles, it looks like they're going to start ramping up and doing some stuff next week in hopes that they could get back sooner or later. So I expect them to be at least like limited in practice, maybe not all 3 days at the worst, but maybe participating in that instance. But at least hopefully one or two of them could be ready for Sunday. So I think their return's pretty imminent after the bye. If not the first game, perhaps the second game back. Haason Reddick, got some good news on him. He underwent an MRI for his knee and his ankle. His knee is apparently totally fine. His ankle is sprained. Todd Bowles said that he is week to week. Now, when Todd Bowles says someone's week to week, you can't just take that at face value because he said that both about Chris Godwin and Bucky Irving. And Bucky Irving's missed 4 games and Chris Godwin's missed 3. So that's not
I
great.
guess that's still considered week to week.
It is, but like you could feasibly have put Irving on IR if you wanted to, and that doesn't sound like week to week, right? So this week, no. Next week, no. Next week, Next week, So that's something to keep in mind. Hopefully, he's not out too long. He was never a big splash player, Haason Reddick, when he's been in for the defense, but he's a high pressure guy, which helps take the attention off of guys like Guy Diaby, who is actually kind of getting those sacks now and starting to find his finishing power halfway through the year. So with a guy like Haason Reddick on the other side, he might really flourish once he comes back. So hopefully that's not too long term either. Things looking up for those three. Gedeke, I don't know, man. And hopefully Gedeke can come back soon, because I think that right side of the line with Charlie Heck and the carousel of right guards that they've been bringing in has been a real weakness for the Bucs offense, particularly in the last two games. Teams are beginning to learn to exploit that side of the line and pressure Baker Mayfield and making those quick throws. So hopefully Gedeke can come back at some point and really be a big missing piece of this offense to be able to do what it wants to do.
Please. That's all I please. Just please. I need you guys back like as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Begging at this point. Just come on, get healthy. But yeah, I mean,
Come on.
it's hard to speculate on things of that nature. It's hard to speculate on a lot of different things of any nature, really. But when it comes to injuries, specifically when you're talking to Todd Bowles about them, you don't want to put too much emphasis on timetables, clearly.
Yep.
But it seems like some of these guys are headed back sooner rather than later, which is good. You've got a tough 3-game stretch coming up. With that being said, we got a couple questions in here, Rivers. So if you guys have any more before we log off for the night, go ahead and throw them in the chat, and we'll try and get to them for you to end off the night. There's some speculation on Luke's foot. Was it a sprain, a fracture? Someone said plantar fasciitis. Do we have any indication on where or what the injury was?
Nothing official from Bowles or Gedeke. So that's a little concerning. Like you said, we have seen him in the locker room. He's been able to walk without his boot. So that's some improvement, and he's been able to do that outside too at practice, but really not revealing what exactly it is, and hopefully it can come back pretty quick. So we'll see how that goes.
Absolutely. And then we've got another one here from Richard, and he said, what would you grade Reddick's play at the halfway point?
Yeah, Richard, similar to how Diaby kind of was last year. So far, he's been a high-pressure guy, but not a lot of production. Per PFF, 27th in total pressure, or 27th in pressures. 27 pressures, sorry, 20th ranked per their metrics, and he probably would be higher if he had actually played in their last game against the New Orleans Saints. So really high pressure guy, and that helps draw attention away from other players. But Anthony Nelson came into the game and immediately became more valuable as far as splash plays than Reddick has been this season, right? Forced a fumble, he got a pick six. He had a sack. Reddick's got 2 sacks on the year. Nelson picked up 1, so
ended up with 1.5 or something like that.
Might have ended up at 1.5. So that's automatically some big reduction. So that's the thing that's missing from Reddick's game is there's no finishing power and the big splash, game altering sort of plays he hasn't really been doing, but he's getting that pressure, and pressure is valuable. But eventually you want to kind of close in and finish it and be able to be a disruptor. Todd Bowles says he wants ball hawks. Anthony Nelson was a ball hawk at the Saints. Haason Reddick has not been able to be a ball hawk like that against anybody else.
He is not, but I wouldn't say he's played bad. I think he's played better than he did a season ago when he was in New York. Up to
whether he's worth $13 million is another question.
Played well. I think it's a large reason why you're seeing Yaya have as successful as a season you've seen from him up to this point. Why he's one of the leaders in pressures as well. While he's got 4 sacks, only half a sack away from his total from a season ago. Only 3.5 sacks away from what he had in his rookie season. So you can contribute, Haason Reddick's play or just his ability to be on the field as a factor in why Yaya's been able to have the games that he has, which in turn, the reason why Anthony Nelson could have had the game he did against the Saints is because they're too worried about Yaya.
Right. That's invaluable. So
and that's invaluable. So then that's an A+. grade, if you ask me. Even when he's not playing, he's making an impact on the field. So, with that being said, guys, we want to thank all of you guys for coming out here and joining us on Here the Cannons. We appreciate you guys, as always, as you comment, give us questions in the chat. Truly do appreciate it. Go ahead and like and subscribe and turn those notifications on so you guys are alerted every single time that we are going live or anytime that we post a video, including instant reactions from games. And we're going to start doing some little halftime stuff for you guys as well here during those games on Sundays, Mondays, or Thursdays. So be sure to keep those notifications on, because if you're watching the game and then you miss what's going on at halftime with us on the show, you're not going to know all the ins and outs of what to expect in the second half. Because that's just plain and simple. That's
true.
That's algebra, dude. We've all taken it. We've got it. But with that being said, River, thank you again, my friend, for coming on and being my co-host and for being one of the greatest editors in the entire country.
Oh, shucks.
No, man. But I'll let you sign us off.
Fire the cannons.